You're welcome to this bootcamp and mini workshop. To bring us the opening prayer, let's call on Udeme to take us.
In Jesus' name, please let's bow our heads as we pray. Father, we thank you for this privilege. We thank you for this workshop. We thank you for this opportunity to impart knowledge, to bring people into a place where they can really contribute to society. We ask that the aim and the purpose for this workshop will come to pass in the name of Jesus. For the facilitators, we ask for supernatural wisdom, articulation to be able to impart the required knowledge. And we ask for understanding for every participant in the name of Jesus Christ. Thank you. We bless your name in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Thank you. Let's put our hands together as we welcome the M&E officer of CApIC-ACE, Professor Olubanke Ugulano.
Good morning, everyone. I want to appreciate the facilitator of the bootcamp for this privilege. I want to acknowledge the presence of everyone here, including my center leader, Professor Uriala, Professor Aditiba, that is virtually present with us, and the keynote speaker and every other person, facilitators here present. I want to say that it's a wonderful thing to be here, and I want all the persons that are privileged, both physically and virtually, to be part of this bootcamp. Is 3.0, so that means in the third in the series. I want them to count it with great privilege to be here. They are here because someone intentionally planned it and ensure that the finances to make this possible is also available. And on that, I want to appreciate Gogo also for being part of the people that facilitated and supported this and make it a reality. And I want to encourage all participants. I want you to learn this workshop as its objectives. So that means there is an expected output. So I want all participants to intentionally ensure that the output is achieved. Is for capacity building. Is for ensuring that students can be able to relate more the theoretical application to the field application. So I want to encourage every one of our students and external participants out there to put it in their mind to be better for it. Fortunately, I'm seeing quite a number of our students, even biochemistry students, that are joining virtually. And I'm happy that you people did not think it's just for people in engineering or computer science alone. And I want to encourage that we begin to look at how to blend all the fields together and impute AI in all aspects of learning and in all aspects of practices, so that at the end of the day, we are better for it. I was explaining to my students the last time when I taught them that most of our equipment now are being enhanced with AI. There's something called the MyLab. MyLab ordinarily before, when you put a blood sample in it, a slide, it will read the blood cells. But now, what the MyLab did was to enhance it with AI. So you can read, the machine can read over 300 samples within a minute. And then you don't need to even have knowledge on how to read the blood samples. The machine can read and give you results within a minute. All you just need to do is to put the slide. Once you put the slide and arrange, the machine will give you a result within a minute. And a lot of people are saying people's job not to be threatened with the release, with the innovation of AI. But we've been told it's just going to make our job better. So it's good as we are trying to be part of this noble cause. And I want to appreciate all the facilitators for being a part of this, for willing to share their knowledge and use it to enhance humanity. So thank you very much. And I want to appreciate Professor Adetiba for this privilege. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. Now we'll call on the CApIC-ACE center leader, in person of Professor Emeka Iweala, to give his opening remark. You're welcome, sir. Let's put our hands together.
Thank you, Master of Events. So I want to recognize the Vice Chancellor, Covenant University, Professor A.H. Adebayo in absentia, and the entire management of Covenant University. I also want to recognize the members of CApIC-ACE. Professor Gunlano is here. And I also recognize the CApIC-ACE students who are present. I recognize our resource persons who are joining virtually and those who are physically here. And I want to start by saying that this bootcamp is a milestone for the center. And I want to appreciate the FedGen group for putting together this milestone. Let me also recognize the support we have received from our university in the center. They have supported us very well, and that is why we are also doing wonderfully well. This program is a very good one, and because it is centered around a topic that is very critical to achieving our research objectives in the center, especially our research objective that has to do with cloud computing infrastructure. And on that note, I want to join Professor Gunlano to warmly welcome everyone to the third Google TensorFlow College Outreach Bootcamp and FedGen mini workshop. Some of our resource persons may not know much about CApIC-ACE, but I want to start by saying that CApIC-ACE is one of the centers funded under the World Bank AFD ACE Impact Project for 2019 to 2025. And this center was actually established to build capacity of African scientists with knowledge and skills in different disciplines, especially computer science, bioinformatics, information and communication engineering, biochemistry and molecular biology, as well as microbiology, and also chemistry is coming on board very soon. It may interest you to note that our center has done a lot in boosting research and training here in Covenant University. And we have done this on several fronts. For instance, we have enabled recruitment of excellent students, postgraduate students, into our programs. And we have also won external grants into the center. We have gotten international accreditation for some of our programs. We have even created new programs in the center like bioinformatics. And we're also doing more to ensure that research and training is boosted in the university. FedGen, like we know, is one of the major research group in the center. And FedGen is doing a wonderful work by driving the evolution of our unique cloud infrastructure. Like we have been told that we have in-memory computing ability and also AI ability. So that is why this workshop is very important. And I've looked at the theme of the workshop, and it says fundamentals of artificial intelligence with Python and TensorFlow framework. So the theme actually captures the purpose of the workshop, which is to introduce participants to the fundamentals of the TensorFlow and also Python, so that they can have the capacity to tackle research questions in AI and deep learning, which we know is a very important hot topic on the front burner, as it were, today. For the participants, I want to also assure you, like we know, Covenant University is one of the leading universities in terms of computer tertiary education. And we are ranked globally in the top, in West Africa and in Nigeria. So for participants, you're in a good place. And I want to assure you that this particular workshop is an affirmation that Covenant University and also CApIC-ACE, has what it takes to provide you with all the tools necessary, for you to develop your career in ICT. So I want to encourage all the participants to be awake and fully integrate yourself into the workshop and make sure you learn all the fundamentals of TensorFlow and Python that will enable you to play important role in research in the AI and the deep learning space. And let me conclude by saying that CApIC-ACE is available to continuously work with all our resource persons to make sure that we continue to build capacity of students in our center and other participants to ensure that our ICT research is on the front burner. Let me use this opportunity to thank all the stakeholders for this workshop, the organizing team. I also want to appreciate our resource persons who are joining both physically and virtually. And I want to sincerely appreciate our funders, the World Bank, the AAU, and also the AFD, as well as the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for providing us this CApIC-ACE platform on which we are doing this program. On that note, I want to welcome everyone, and I say, have a wonderful and successful workshop. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Iweala. Once again, this is the third Google TensorFlow for College Outreach Bootcamp and FedGen Mini Workshop, brought to you by the Advanced Signal Processing and Machine Intelligence Research Group and the FedGen Research Group of CApIC-ACE, Covenant University, Canaanland, Ota, Ogun State, Nigeria. And it's sponsored by Google. And to bring us the opening remark at this point is the CApIC-ACE Deputy Center Leader and the ASPM IR and FED Principal Investigator, Professor Emmanuel Adetiba.
Okay, thank you very much. And as I earlier said, I already established a protocol by the center leader, and to appreciate the management of Covenant University, led by our amiable Vice Chancellor, Professor A.H. Adebayo, and the Registrar of Covenant University, and the Center Management of CApIC-ACE, headed by Professor Iweala, and to also thank Professor Ogunlana Olubanke, also doing very wonderful work on the platform of CApIC-ACE, and for always encouraging us to keep pushing the boundaries. And just to also appreciate the keynote speaker of today in the person of Professor Thakur, who is my host at the KZN East Keys Co-Lab, Durban University of Technology, Durban in South Africa. Is the one that is going to be giving us the keynote. I appreciate you, Prof. And to also say a big thank you to all the members of LOC for this workshop. We have Dr. Hoshin coordinating the LOC. We have Mrs. Ajayi as a co-chair of the LOC. We have Mrs. Ifije as also a co-chair of the LOC, and all the members of the LOC for dedicated effort to ensure that this bootcamp becomes a reality today. And to just say a brief thing in respect of the first Germany workshop at the Google TensorFlow outreach, we had the first edition of this kind of event on the 4th of February 2022. It was tagged mini workshop or bootcamp on installation of microstack and Jupyter Notebook for TensorFlow. And that event was also funded by Google. That happened in 2022 February. And the second edition happened on the 4th to 5th of May 2022. The title was Development of OpenStack on Multi-Node Cloud Platforms with installation of Jupyter Hub. And of course, primarily the purpose of this bootcamp and mini workshop is to ensure that all our scholars within CApIC-ACE, especially those that are in the engineering and computer science, they have the requisite skill so that by the time they get to working on their research project, both masters and PhD students, they don't have to struggle in respect of the tools they need to use. We have through the funding from World Bank and the African France Development Agency, as earlier mentioned by Professor Iweala, we've been able to set up high performance computing infrastructure within CApIC-ACE. There are 2 labs that are dedicated for cloud and high performance computing. We have the FedGen Lab 1, where we have currently 10 high performance computing laptops. And also we are setting up a data center. And the essence of this data center is to achieve research computing. We also have the FedGen Lab 2, where we have our testbed platform. The testbed platform allows our students to dirty their hands using servers, high-end servers, when they are carrying out their project. And of course, this workshop is part of capacity building to ensure that the infrastructure are not just there, but the students and other researchers that are meant to make use of them, they also have the requisite skill and to finish their research project in record time. So this is the 3rd edition, which is titled Fundamentals of Artificial Intelligence with Python and TensorFlow Framework. And it is going to be running from today through till Wednesday, that's 11th to 13th of December 2023. The key highlights of this 3rd edition, we are going to be having the keynote speech. And of course, very shortly, that is going to happen. Catalyzing STEM research with artificial intelligence is a topic that is so dear to me personally. That is part of what will be exposed through the keynote speech. Then we'll be having overview of Python for artificial intelligence programming. We'll be having linear algebra and multivariate calculus with Python for engineering and science students. We want them to be able to see the maths behind the AI. So this is part of what is going to be treated in the course of this workshop. And we are going to be talking about artificial intelligence and the brain, and also reinforcement learning, which is one of the key flavor of artificial intelligence that is creating a lot of waves currently. So so far, the physical participants that register for this workshop, we have about 20 physical participants, and we have 33 online participants that are registered, making a total of 51 participants. And I want to believe that we are going to have a very good time. It's going to be a very rich intellectual banquet as we progress with the workshop. So on this note, I want to say a big thank you to everyone, and I want to welcome us all to this workshop. Thank you, and thank you, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Our hands together.
We'll have the keynote address
right now. And to take the citation of the keynote speaker, let's put our hands together as we welcome Comfort Shomefon. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Please permit me to stand on the existing protocol, but I also want to recognize the presence of the CApIC-ACE Center leader, Professor Iweala and Professor Ogunlanu. Please, I want to request that our keynote speaker sits comfortably while I stand here to read his citation. Dr. Surendra Thakur is currently an associate professor with the Department of Information Technology at Durban University of Technology in Durban, South Africa. He's also the director of the NEMISA KZN eSkills Collab, also at Durban University of Technology, which starts with eSkills in general, and particularly on the e-enablement of government services for effective service delivery, with a focus on e-democracy and e-participation. He also conceptualized and introduced Invotech, an innovation incubator with Durban University of Technology, where one of his patents is being registered. Let's give him a round of applause, please. He is an international e-voting expert, an emerging expert in social media, a national authority in social media on big data, and the director of the KZN Digital Collab at Durban University of Technology. His research interests include data science, e-voting, and public participation, and social media. Dr. Thakur has served on many executive forums over the years, such as Executive Committee, Senate, and Faculty Board. He was also the National Treasurer of the Computer Society of South Africa for a year, and later the chair of the KZN Computer Society of South Africa for 3 years, and vice chairperson for 2 years. Let us welcome our keynote speaker for this morning, Dr. Surendra Thakur. You are welcome, sir.
Good morning, colleagues, and thank you very much for the long and warm welcome. I'd just like to say that having Dr. Aditya in South Africa is such a pleasure. He's such a nice person and a very engaging person. But I need to confess that the real reason that I brought Professor Aditya to South Africa was because I'm totally in love with YAM. And YAM is I've been to Nigeria many times, usually to Abuja because of my election work and with INEC. And of course, you guys have YAM in everything, and I completely fell in love with YAM as a meal and as for baking and for cooking and for everything. The thing about YAM in South Africa, colleagues, is that it's the size of a tennis ball in South Africa. Yet in your country, YAM is the size of it can be the size of a massive pumpkin. So that should be our first area of research. How can I get bigger YAM in South Africa? This is the homework that Prof has given me to do, to speak about catalyzing STEM research with artificial intelligence. I want to start by saying that we are about to do something awesome in this area. And I'm going to be a little bit vague about that because we have submitted some joint proposals, and we'll wait and see what happens with that. But I am going to speak about the notion of STEM, the notion of catalyzing research through the lens of artificial intelligence and other technologies. The thing with STEM, colleagues, is that STEM is like a university. It's a nice collective noun. It's a beautiful acronym. It says good things. It implies good things. But like a university, it's almost a dysfunctional acronym. It fits nicely together into the acronym, but leveraging this acronym to work together, therein lies the problem. The problem, of course, is if you had to look at STEM, it's almost like 4 or 5 or 6 faculties in one acronym. And right? University people, they talk the language of working together, but they're generally steeped in their silos. So, and necessarily so, right? Because I mean, we have a challenge with our publications. So this is the conundrum of STEM. And we would like to think that STEM is a gem, that we know that. We kind of know that if this thing works together, if all of these things work together, then we could make really good things happen. If you had to look at the engineer that is Professor Aditya, the reason he does things well is because of his multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary kind of work. So that in itself is telling us maybe the notion that science people staying with science people might not be the way to go. So how do we make this gem sparkle? Given that we already have hundreds of years of university existence and still not having this transdisciplinary catalytic research that's going on, with or without AI. So, of course, we've also been bound to new acronyms, like this big thing called 4IR. And this one here says that this is my favorite all-time favorite technology comment, that we are currently preparing students that do not exist, using technologies that have not yet been invented in order to solve problems that we don't even know about. This is a deeply profound statement, and it nothing encapsulates it more than the statement. My two kids are 22 and 23 years old. Both of them are working in fields that when they started university kind of existed, data science, but the term was not as pervasive as it is now. So, most kids in school will be working in job descriptions that we haven't heard about. Okay, and then of course we had this other thing, that other C word, which I'm not going to give it any airplay. Then, from our perspective, colleagues, from our perspective, the African academic, our own battles and our own challenges that comes with funding and poor resources and so on. But in spite of that, we are still heavily steeped in our research. We still get things done, right? And we've really grown our unidisciplinary research, the topic that we got our PhD on, or the area that we got our PhD on, and we into deep mining, for the want of a better expression, right? We really producing good research in the work that we do. And these are beautiful rabbit holes that we have, which produces great research. But we're not united. We don't have the STEM kind of foresight. We are as united as, as a cloud of cats, I would say, okay? Now, on the other side of the equation, and this is my pet gripe, is that the African academic in a global context, we have all these so-called academic missionaries. I'm calling them that deliberately. They come to South Africa, they use Africa, and they use us as junior research partners. They use us as interviewees. They interview us, so we almost like survey monkeys, and then we become essentially their data gatherers. And if you have to look at the medical field, they want usually our patient data, and then they go and publish things in Lancet and Nature magazine and things like that. But here's the thing: if you had to look at all the papers that have South African epidemiology work or medical work, you'll find that the authors are almost exclusively overseas based, yet the data is ours. So this worries me as well, and this is concern provides us with an opportunity. Now, here's the good news here, colleagues. Lancet has now decided that if there's any paper with African data in it without African collaborators, they are going to reject that paper. And I think this is a really important process. It's an important event. It's an important intervention that we must evangelize. Everybody must know this now, that if you are collaborating with an overseas group of people, we deserve to be in the list of researchers. We deserve. We could demand, but they should have the academic maturity to understand that we deserve to be part of it, okay? So if Lancet is going to reject papers that fail to acknowledge African collaborators, we need to do the same thing in other non-medical fields as well. So we need to take this process and spread it across so that other people who take our data acknowledge the source of the data and acknowledge the people that generate the data or create the data or gather the data, so that we become collaborators rather than participants. And this, of course, speaks to one of the things that I'm going to allude to quickly now, which is the SDG, right? Which is number 4 on the list of the 17. So how can we purposefully start now with this notion of STEM? What are the catalytic things that we can do? Well, there's the STEM which I'm obliged to speak about, and then of course I kind of ambushed 4IR in it only because artificial intelligence is a subset of this big new word that we know. But I was thinking that rather than STEM, if we had to be purposeful, I was thinking that for us to move this agenda forward in a way that may result in a useful outcome to our continent, then we could perhaps look at the SDGs, the sustainable development goals. Okay, and this is where I want to channel this one. So I'm not going to talk about 4R. I'm just going to put all the topics that are there, right? And you can see that. And so if we had to look at AI, that kind of is the subset of the larger set that is AI. But for me, the interesting thing is that this is a fusion or a blurring of these technologies. And arguably, all of these technologies form part of STEM anyway. So, not to bore you, but there are 17 of these SDGs. And if you had to look at each one of them, and you had to try to solve each one of them, or resolve each one of them, or mitigate each one of them, or impact on each one of them, then you'll find that your area of expertise, whatever you are doing, will fit in one or more of these SDGs. So if every unidisciplinary researcher had to attack this, we're going to chip away at it anyway, but we're going to chip away in a unidisciplinary manner. And if you had to look at the 17 top SDGs, and then you'll realize that there are 169 targets that make up these ones. So, people have sat down and said, what are the targets to measure SDG 1, which is no poverty? What are the targets to measure 2, which is zero hunger, and so on? So there's 169 targets that we have there. Now, when we look at our overarching measurement as academics that we are, we have to publish. Okay, you remember this notion of publish or perish, that's really evolved over time, to publish or perish. I'd like to think that, the new one is partner or perish, right? And of course, we had partnering with people within your department, which kind of usually happens, you and your supervisor, and then you and your supervisor's supervisor, and then you and your colleagues, and then you and your students. But again, you're still staying in that silo. And then sometimes through your dean's intervention, you 2 or 3 departments, or a common funder, 2 or 3 departments get together, and then you get this kind of cross-faculty or intra-faculty kind of relationships. Now, I'm looking at this whole SDG thing from an interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary kind of manner to say, how can we now start looking at this SDGs in a way that can help us resolve that? And I think that the common connector or the common denominator for this type of research can be, some people call it data science, other people call it artificial intelligence. Think about it this way. Almost all research that is done has an element of statistics, whether it is a hypothesis or some ANOVA table or MANOVA table or some modeling. Some people call it statistics, other people will call it mathematics. So if you had to look at that, now that we've evolved and have better ways of analyzing data, it can be data science, which is mathematics, statistics, and artificial intelligence. Or some people prefer to use a bigger word and say that actually data science is a subset of artificial intelligence. I'm not going to play with words, but you get my point, right? It doesn't matter what you think, as long as you understand the point I'm trying to make. So this fusion that we spoke about, the 23 odd 4IR topics, the 17 SDGs, and the 169 targets that allow us to measure these SDGs, our progress or lack of progress. Can you see that the number of combinations is suddenly becoming exponential? But how exponential is this exponential? Well, it's incredibly exponential. The 17 SDGs themselves, if we had to look at 1 and 2 and 1 and 3 and 1 and 4, tuples of 2 and then tuples of 3 and tuples of 4 and all the way up to tuples of 17, which is 1, we get 131,000 combinations. can you imagine how many subjects are going to be involved in that? Okay. And then this becomes a wicked problem, just looking at the 17 and the 169. So how then do we solve? Can you see that we need something bigger and to help us to do this? And so SDGs is a wicked problem. Now, there was a beautiful paper in 2020 that came out. It's already got about 1,000. I looked just now, it was about 1,600 citations in Nature, which looked at the role of AI in SDGs. And it looked at how, which of these SDGs can AI support and what would the impact be? And here's the interesting thing. It said that AI can support 134 of the targets, and it will inhibit 59 of the 169 targets. Now, of course, if you add 134 to 159, you will see it's more than the number of targets, because AI can both be an enabler and an inhibitor at the same time. So the positive features of a target can be enabled by certain AI technologies, and other features of the target can be inhibited by AI technology. That is why you get this 134 plus 59 being higher than 169. So the question is, with AI, have we sat with that 134 targets and said, how can we solve these things? How can we look at it from an African point of view? How do we mitigate the 59 that supposedly AI will not help with that? Or should we just focus on the 134? These are types of conversation that we should be having. Okay. Now, if we had to look at that 169 targets again, and that 17 SDGs, and I had to look at that number of permutations, I worked it out. Well, I didn't. I just got lazy and I said, ChatGPT, tell me the answer. See how good we are as academics now, how lazy we've become. So it gave me a number of 3.6 times 10 to the 25. That's the number of combinations with that 17 and that 169. Now, those of you remember from school, Avogadro's number was 6.02 times 10 to the power 23. And this is 3.6 times 10 to the power 25. This is a really, really, really wicked problem. Of course, if we had subject matter experts from other domains, we could reduce this number by several orders of magnitude just through mathematics, through common sense, and through domain expert knowledge. So the 3.6 times 10 to the 25 could even reduce to 3.6 times 10 to the 2 or 10 to the 3 or 10 to the 4. And this is why this combination of us working with other people. Now, I know we're busy with what you do, and I understand that, and I get that. But can we not at least start working with other people? It'll allow us to write inter-faculty papers, interdisciplinary papers, and will allow us to do things. Consider if we had to take 2 SDGs and create an LLM, just with 2, right? And we had a group of experts working on making that LLM more accurate. In other words, active moderators who improve the knowledge of this LLM. This can now become a resource for transdisciplinary research, and that LLM can now support our PhD and master's students with very little help from us, and we can focus on the big questions and the big things. So the literature review can be done more or less through the LLM, and we can focus on number crunching and ideification. So this is the kind of thing that we could do. And remember, I said n equals to 2, right? Just a tuple of 2. We could get smarter and cleverer over time and say, let's go n is equal to 3 and so on and so on. But again, if the underpinning thing was the SDGs, and we chose purposefully to choose subjects to tackle a certain number of SDGs, funding will not be a problem because we are goal-oriented, we are purposeful, and outcomes can be measured. Okay. Now, I keep talking about data, and data is my huge problem. And for me, this notion of democratizing data is the problem. And when we look at these cables that are spun around Africa, and we hear these people tell us how much they're doing for us, these Googles and these Facebooks, and they are loading cables around Africa all kinds of cables on West Africa and East Africa and so on. And of course, they say they're doing this for us, right? They want to enable Africans. Well, let's see, right? But so if we had to look at this enablement of data from an African point of view, so they're saying that they're giving us our basic human right. Okay, so maybe that is that. But then this access must also be balanced with this thing called data privacy, and must be looked at through the lens of the device divide that is still occurring in large parts of the continent. So you might have access to the data, but how do you get it if you don't have devices? So and then of course we know that certain countries in Africa, the price of data is prohibitive, and South Africa is one of them, by the way. We have this abuse of the corporate, the infrastructure corporates who have given the people have everything. They have the device, they have the grid, they have the ability to use it, but the cost of the data is prohibitive. Now, we need to reclaim through this what I would call our digital sovereignty. And I think this is a hugely important process. Let me put this digital sovereignty in another context to you. South Africa has many very established, now almost international banking groups that are now operating in many countries in Africa. And in terms of the financial law, the African companies have now decided that, and of course international law as well, has said that because of the privacy laws and the financial security, the need for the financial security of the data of a person, the financial data of a person and the personal data of the person cannot leave the natural boundaries of the country. So the data has to reside in the country. You know what that did, people? That actually reversed the tide of all of these servers sitting in Atlanta, all of these servers sitting in the Google Cloud and the Amazon Cloud. And this is why I salute FedGen for the kind of work that you are doing. You are now trying to localize data, you're trying to regionalize data and keep data within the physical boundaries of the country. So you'll now find that people like the banks in South Africa, if you could name one or two of them, standard banks of the country, are now establishing data centers in the domestic domicilia of the country that they are operating, which would, of course, create jobs and add to the digital sovereignty that I'm talking about, which is a really, for me, a really good thing. Okay, but did the FICA laws have to persuade the country to do that? So Google was abusing us and we thought they were helping us. Amazon was abusing us and we thought they were helping us. And now that we have our own data centers, we can now, we don't even need brilliance anymore. We can use things like ChatGPT to help people to analyze the data. We don't need people like Facebook and all of that to do that. And of course, we know that these Facebooks of the world, when it suits them, they call themselves a infrastructure provider. They just provide the software, people talk. So when there's a terrorist bombing or some event, they say, no, we are the postman, okay? So we call that the data paradox, all right? Now, in this notion of democratizing data and democratizing data, I put this one here, just for your own consumption. I'm not going to talk about it. You guys know what I'm talking about, but it's an important slide if you're talking to people, non-IT people, yeah, or non-AI type of people. Now, one way to democratize data, another way for us in this underspinning tone, is to evangelize AI. And we have enough tools with AI now to allow people to do an analysis of the data without actually knowing what's under the bonnet of the engines. So people can use logistic analysis, they can use regression analysis, they can use all of these tools. All we got to do is show them through examples what they can do. They have the data intuition. We just need to show them. Or alternatively, the AI people can work with the non-AI people in their own disciplines, okay? So we now, through the SDGs, they are now starting to create this metadata. The data is now sitting on international cloud servers for the benefit of man. And I think this is a really important goal that we are going through, where like in addition to the Kaggles and the GitHubs, where we're getting public data sets, we now should start also contributing data sets to the cloud for the purposes and benefit of Africa. Now, I am of the view that we should make data so available and so publicly analyzable that the business case for these big techs, the Facebooks and the Googles, disappears. And I think we can get there. Now, I'm going to show you an example of the work that we can do, right? I mean, we all know these things, right? The Boston Marathon was when technology was used to try to identify the bomber in one of the Boston Marathons. Please Google that. It's an interesting thing on how things can go wrong, and that's why I put it up there. But it has kind of worked with Arab Spring, depending on who you speak to. There was the Fees Must Fall campaign in South Africa, and analytics of COVID, misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. The thing about this type of analytics is that there's so much of unstructured data on social media that you have to use AI to analyze it. There is no human that can read the volume and the amount, and of course, the amount of nonsense as well. So we have to learn between this notion of content analysis, sentiment analysis, and context analysis. Now, to me, these guys are the frenemy. At one time, when a telco was an infrastructure provider, it was good. They just provided a point-to-point voice communication. People could talk. Then it became a connected data communication. That was fine. But then they started discovering this notion of value-added services. And this is where their roles and responsibilities have started becoming blurred. And this is what's happening with Facebook, right? And I will talk about that just now, right? So this is the kind of kleptocracy that we are going to have. I want you guys, those of you that are interested in this whole thing, to Google this one here. I'm not going to talk about it, but I'll gladly talk to you offline about it. Go and Google Baby Bell, the Baby Bell antitrust in 1984. If this could happen in 1984, it can happen again now. This is where when a big company was forced to become smaller companies because they were worried that the big company was becoming bigger than the government, which is what's happening in the case of Google and Facebook. Please Google that. That's your homework. Okay. So infrastructure and the last mile services, these are the MTNs and the Safaricom's. But are they abusing our data privacy? Well, here's my thing. Right? We pay for our data on a phone that tracks us. We pay for our car insurance that monitors. We pay for beds that measure us. We pay for TV that listen to us. Facebook claims to be free. Now, when you are the product. So this is, I know this is not even about AI, but this is why I say we need to make the data so pervasive and so available that the business case for these people disappears and they run away from our continent. We really don't need them, because what they are doing is they are exporting our data, they are selling our data to companies, and they are getting the revenue for the advertisement, not Nigeria, not South Africa, not Tanzania, not Ivory Coast. Facebook is getting the revenue. And what have they done for us? So we need to build our own cables, okay? So again, I emphasize the point. When something is free, we are the product because it monitors us forever and ever. All right. Now, my second bit of homework for you is these two books here. I really would like you guys to read this one to understand the impact of the research we do, the impact of the analytics that we do, and the kind of impact that it will have on us. These two books are compulsory reading for anybody who is serious. In the social media space, doing context, content, or sentiment analysis in AI, okay? We know that with statistics, you can design experiments, you can do things. But we also know that when we do these things, we get false positive, we get false negatives, and the other two we're okay with. Now, and of course, this problem comes from ignorance, it comes from bias, it comes from personal conviction, it comes from data conflation. Now, many of these things can go away because we are blessed with the ability to analyze data. We are starting to analyze data that are outside our domain expertise. We're starting to analyze other data in other domains. I know Professor Aditya is working on the breathalyzer of Betonomics project, and of course I know he has medical experts there, so that's good. And there are other areas where we're working on where we kind of do it ourselves, and this is where our ignorance and data conflation starts coming in. So out of necessity, given that we have or want to work with data, we need the other domain experts. And that will drive us. And with that 1 + 1 synergy equals 3 type synergy, the other domain experts will allow us to produce more papers. So rather than them producing in their field and you producing in your field, you take that synergy, use their data, use your collective wisdom, and produce more data, right? So we know this, right? So, and for the data to be understood and clean and cleansed properly, you need a area expert or a domain expert. To aggregate data, you need two types of experts. You need a computational expert, you need a domain expert. So these are the types of things that I'm trying to evangelize, that we know what to do with the data. But are we doing the right thing? The domain experts know better than us. So why don't we partner with them and start working with them? I'm just going to use this example here. This should have been SDG 2. Sorry, my slides slipped out, which is no hunger. We thought we can use for our technology to print food, and not just to alleviate hunger, but in areas of and places like that. But so to places like Mars, we can also use that technology to produce food. Now, sometimes, and I just want to show this as a counterpoint, right? Because I've been working in this space a little bit, and I've been observing that the French example. The France has a law called the Garrett Law that says that all surplus food by law must be recycled and used to alleviate hunger. Now, that works in terms of the law, but how can you use AI to create an adequate transport distribution system that minimizes the transport of the food? Because otherwise the person that's dumping the food will want to dump the food because it's cheaper for them to do that. But if we can create a really, really clever network of purposefully moving the food high supply or high surplus supply to high need in the shortest distance, the old Dijkstra's shortest path algorithm type thing. And if we can do that, it'll firstly satisfy Garrett's law, it'll mitigate hunger, and it's a win-win situation. So you can see that something simple like that, we can actually do it in technology using a supply chain management and things like that. Okay. Now, I didn't want to talk about ethics because I think that's for the social scientists and people. They're very good at those types of things. So let them do it. But what's happening with us in terms of the modern technologies is that we got deepfake and we got Gen AI that can now produce this image that we just tell the thing, produce a picture of Mona Lisa bareback riding a horse, or riding a horse without a saddle, as it were, and it will do that. And we don't know whether the image is true or false or fake or what. I mean, of course, Mona Lisa we would know. So we can now produce lifelike images that could be truly false. So how are we going to do that? By the way, this is a picture of me when I was younger. I took my picture and I put it on Lionel Messi, of him holding the World Cup. I wanted to hold the World Cup, so I used a software. I rendered it and I put my face in there. But this was when I was 23 years old. Now I got no hair. I didn't want to use my current picture because I was concerned about someone else deepfaking it. And there you go. I'm not going to show you that. Okay, so there's that. And of course, through deepfake, we now have this new word, which is called AI hallucinations, which uses a lot of false positives in any image or any field that we have. So now we need to not only analyze data, but we also need to start, as domain experts, to start saying, how do we mitigate and use technology to also weave out or identify these types of hallucinations. Okay, so we're now using the technology that produces false images to find false images, or the technology that produces false information to find false information, which is kind of using the fox to guard the hen house, as it were. So we need these types of things, and of course, as you know, even with any level of these types of technologies, moderation is going to become key. So it's a new kind of moderation. It's going to need expert level moderation as well. And then from our side as academics, our students are now going to be using this thing more and more. How are we going to determine that the work that our students do is their work, that they have their knowledge? I fear that we're going to have to start having this type of public defenses, not only at PhD level, but at master's level and perhaps even at honors level. It is as it is, guys. We're going to have to do this because if we're going to use technology to mark our students' work, we have more time. So why don't we use that time that we saved to have these public defenses so that we could ensure that the integrity of our students' output. Okay. So I spoke about this to you. I'm not going to speak about this again. But this is just some image to show you that about the fees must fall and the error string, and the kind of analytical work that is still going on with scientists computer scientists trying to analyze the data through natural language processing. The COVID has given us billions of records that we are now analyzing to work out the rate of change of information. By the way, it seems that the magic number for disinformation dissemination on social media is 12. If you have 12 influencers and they perpetuate a false positive as often as possible, it will eventually be perceived as being real. Interesting number 12. I'm trying to work it out, but the few cases that I looked at, the 12 has been affirmed, sometimes 13, but mostly 12. Okay, so we know we have this thing called AI, and we know that we can do it, and we know that I suggested to you maybe not STEM, maybe look at SDGs, but let's also be very, very careful. I spoke to you about hallucination. Let's also be very, very careful that we don't take this thing called AI and use it as a hammer for every single problem that we see. Sometimes common sense can prevail. This is from that paper, the SCG paper, the Nature magazine paper that showed how the positive impact and the negative impact of AI. I deliberately blurred the target. I didn't want you to see the target for one simple reason. You can read the paper, but I just wanted you to look at this paper, this diagram in the abstract and start thinking about it. Time does not allow me to go through this with you, but you can see that it's a very, very interesting, intriguing way of looking at the SDGs and looking at it through a particular target. We can call this target X. Okay. Please go and read that paper as well. So my view is, in terms of AI for the SDGs, for each target we need to know, will it help? How complex is the solution that it will help with? What is the expense of the solution? What is the cost of it? Can we rank these solutions from easiest to hardest? And the easiest one can be used for our third years and second years and fourth year students, and as they scale up, become the master's level problem and then become the PhD problem. But then, if we can look at these SDGs, would domain experts from outside our fields, I think we will really, really create a lot of output through this notion of partnering and publishing. Okay, and these are just some examples that I just rehashed. Life on Mars, the measuring urbanization, sea, climate modeling. I mean, these are just, the slide shouldn't even be here, to be honest. Because I'm talking to fellow African academics, my favorite saying has always been, when an elder dies, the library burns to the ground. And we have a huge, steep history of oral history in our continent. And we need somehow to preserve this oral history and digitize it and digitalize it for the benefit of the future generations. It's just a gap. It's nothing to do with AI. It's just a gap that I thought I'll ambush this talk with. Okay, so can Africa democratize education within and between nations when we have a skill shortage? I think that's what it boils down to. So my advice would be that we should consider moving the mountain to Moses. We have too few experts, and it takes a long time to develop these experts. So why don't we create these regional, national, and transnational centers of excellence with the hardware and the firmware? Professor Aditya being here in Durban with me is an example of the mountain, moving the mountain to Moses. The Prof is our expert, and him being here will ultimately benefit Durban University of Technology and grow the brand that is Nigeria. So I think that your country and your university. So this is the types of thing that we need to do. We need many Professor Aditya. So to our colleagues in the FedGen, I hope that you are listening and you are ready to step into his shoes as well. And then we also need to instantly analyze the world. You see, Meta University took 10 universities, it gave them all XR kits, and nice. I mean, that's a very good thing to do. But how come they gave this to 10 universities in the US? What's wrong with African university? Courses that they offer to those universities, to African universities. What was the business proposition that they used to fund American universities and not fund us? And what are we doing about it? We need to remind these people that we exist, because they want our data. They put their cable around the continent, but they don't want to do business with us. So we need to think about that. Okay. So ask yourself this question: how many universities in Africa use AR and VR? And I just said that just now. So of course we should be using this type of technology, but we should not be paying for it if other universities are not paying for it. So we need to look at also to I said evangelize AI. So can we create I hear that you are running a sensor course. Congratulations. So we need to create our own kind of Coursera with micro credentials where we and for public good, and it should be transnational, and and we can lobby for recognition of these micro credentials. So in conclusion, colleagues, my advice is the following. Let's look at 4IR with bigger lens. How can we recursively use 4IR for experiential learning, for creating and inculcating research capacity, and just for learning and teaching, right? Can we use 4IR again to co-create content? I'm talking about immersive experiences, the 3D printing, AR, and of course AI. And let's copy left the material that we create, so that people can use it for the benefit of the continent. And this notion of a meta university that I want to talk to you about is basically the thing that us bringing the mountain to Moses, where we bring high value, high powered researchers and make them more available to more students across the continent, given the scarcity. And of course, we can only use the willing academics. Unfortunately, some academics are just too busy writing, and they're good at it and they want to do that. Bless them and let them continue. Others are more enabling and they have time, or they're willing to spend some time. Let's only work with the people who want to work. There's no point in trying to talk to people who are busy for whatever reason. Okay, so we must try to be the change that we want to see. We must turn this outward telescopic way that we want to look at things into the nice microscopic way of looking at things. So drill outwards and drill inwards is the way that we need to look at it. And AI allows that both type of thinking, the one where you look out and the one where you look in. So you can look both sides of the lens, and there are research opportunities on either side. Okay, and I think from my point of view, we have to start respecting ourselves. We have to start loving ourselves. We have to start admiring each other from the continent. And no one should do anything for us without us. And thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Thakur. We've come across new words. It was an amazing presentation, exactly, just as indicated by one of our online participants just now. We've been able to see the positive and the negative impacts of artificial intelligence on our research, and we should take notes, right, to move forward. Thank you so much.
Prof. Thakur, that was a lovely one, and thank you, big thank you. I wasn't surprised anyway. I would have been surprised if it was otherwise. I was hearing. I normally call him an academic poet. You can see how poetic the presentation was. And I just want to confirm if the slide will be made available so that persons can also pick from that. There were quite a lot of, like the Emmy said, new words that persons may also want to pick and take home. Thank you. Okay.
I shall email the presentation to you shortly.
Okay. That's
all right. Thank you, sir.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to everyone and to the organizer, as well as to Professor Thakur for that wonderful presentation. I kind of just want to say that I strongly support his ideology and concept regarding the interdisciplinary collaboration in terms of not focusing within the silo. That's a very wonderful idea, and it could open up a lot of big frontiers for research and development. So thank you very much for bringing that up. Thanks, everyone.